In a scene described by one investigator as reminiscent of a weird religious rite, 5 persons, including actress Sharon Tate, were found dead at the home of Miss Tate and her husband, screen director Roman Polanski. Miss Tate, who starred in Valley of the Dolls, was 8 months pregnant and was found in a bikini-type nightgown with a rope around her neck attached to the body of a man.
Is there anything scrawled on the front door of that house in blood? I can't answer that question.
In the early hours of August 9th, 1969, a heavily pregnant American actress and model Sharon Tate was murdered in a disgusting and vicious way. She, along with 4 others, were murdered in her home located in Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles, California. The crime scene was reminiscent of a horror movie. The walls were covered in writings formed of Sharon Tate's blood. The killers became known as the MANSON family and were instructed to carry out the murders under the influence of infamous American criminal Charles Manson. The main motive behind the murders is believed to be Charles Manson's helter-skelter ideology. He believed an imminent race war was coming, and therefore he instructed his family to kill and make it look like radicals committed the crime in order to speed up the process. However, during a prison interview, Manson claimed the helter-skelter motive was fabricated and claimed there was a much darker motive behind the crime. The crime left a mark on Hollywood and brought an end to the love and peace hippie generation of the 1960s. After investigating the crime, we've come across some dark conspiracy theories and information that was not released by the media. In this video, we will take a look at the twisted theories and intel which links to Satanism, the Mafia, and drug trafficking. After listing all the possible motives, you will be able to decide for yourself. A poll will appear at the end of the video, and your vote will be tallied up and revealed in the next episode of this new series. Firstly, we will take a look at the crimes committed by the family over the summer of 1969. On July 27, 1969, Gary Hinman, a music teacher, was found dead in his home on Alta Panga Canyon Road, Santa Monica, California. He was found with several stab wounds and a deformed ear. On the walls of the property, the words "Political Piggy" was written in Gary's blood. Several members of the family, including Manson himself, was involved in his death. On July 25, 1969, family members Bobby Busoli, Susan Atkins, and Mary Bruner went to Gary's house and demanded money off him. Bobby claimed he bought a large quantity of the drug known as mescaline off of Gary. Bobby then tried to resell the drug to a motorcycle gang known as the Straight Satans. After members of the gang tested the drug, they realized it was poor quality and demanded for a refund. This is what caused Bobby to kill Gary. After Gary refused to give over money, Bobby stabbed him in the chest and held him hostage. Gary remained alive for the next 2 days. He was bleeding, crying out for help, and praying. Manson arrived at the house on July 27, 1969. Once he arrived, he sliced off a portion of Gary's ear as a means of torture in order to solicit the money from him. The 2 girls then reattached Gary's ear using dental floss. Manson then ordered Bobby to kill Gary. Bobby stabbed Gary to death. Gary chanted Buddhist prayers as he lay dying. Manson instructed Bobby to make the crime scene look as if it was committed by black revolutionaries in order to throw off the police. This is why he wrote "Political Piggy" in blood on the walls. He also drew the Black Panthers logo in blood. Here is Charles Manson's account of what happened that night.
Gary sold some dope to some bad people. Kid come to me and says, "Hinman owes me." I said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" He said, "You're my brother, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." He said, "What do I do?" I said, "Well, if you're big enough, go get your money. If you're not, sit down and keep quiet." So he called me a couple of days later. He said, "Man, this guy's got a gun." I said, "Don't invoke me to no violence, man." Bruce McGregor Davis and I go over to Hinman's house. I got a knife on my leg, so I cut Hinman's ear, and I take the gun. He shoots off on the wall, and I throw the gun one way, and I throw the knife the other way, and I give the kid the knife, and I say, "That's how you do it. Don't bring me into this no more. Don't bring me into no violence." And I left. We patched his ear up. We put some Scotch tape on his ear. We fixed him up. He's back on the road. No problems. So then Hinman got well. He got the knife. Oh, no, he got the gun. He got the gun. He said, "I'm going to go kill that." And he said, "Well," and Bobby said, "No, I can't let you do that." He said, "You gave your word." And he said, "Well, no, that don't mean nothing to me." You know, he said, "He cut my ear. I'm going to go blah, blah, blah." And Bobby said, "No, I can't let you do that," because he was standing up for me. He pushed by Bobby, and Bobby handed him the knife. When he pushed by, he gave the knife to Hinman and told Hinman, kill me. And Hinman says, I don't want you. Boom. Bobby said, you gave your word as your bond, and your bond is your life. If you make one more move towards it, I'm taking you away. And he made the move. Bobby took him, and he died.
Sharon Tate was born in Austin, Texas on January 24, 1943. As a teen, she was interested in psychiatry but decided to pursue a career in film. Her film career began in 1961 after she starred in several movies, however, her roles were uncredited. She became noticed after starring in the occult-themed movie Eye of the Devil. In total, she starred in 9 films and 3 TV shows. She also modeled and appeared on the front cover of several magazines. She met her husband Roman Polanski while in London filming for Eye of the Devil in late 1965. Although they wasn't interested in each other at the time, they fell in love while filming for Polanski's 1967 film The Fearless Vampire Killers. The couple married in London on January 20th, 1968. In 1968, Roman began to start working on a film called Rosemary's Baby. This was a psychological horror film which follows a pregnant woman who, unbeknownst to her, is holding the spawn of Satan in her womb. The film hints that the woman's husband sold her womb to the devil with the help of Satanists in order to gain fame and fortune. The film was released on June 12, 1968.
Oh, God! God is dead! Satan lives! The year is won!
In December of 1968, Roman and Sharon conceived their son. On August 8, 1969, Sharon, who was just 2 weeks away from giving birth, was entertaining 2 friends at her home. She was quite anxious as Roman hadn't returned from London on the day that he claimed he was returning. Later that evening, Sharon went to have something to eat at her favourite restaurant, El Coyote. She was accompanied by Jay Sebring, a hairdresser, Wojtek Frykowski, an aspiring screenwriter, and Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune. They returned to Sharon's home on 10050 Celio Drive, located in Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles, California. Arriving at about 10:30 p.m, they had no idea what was to come within the following hours. Shortly after midnight, 4 members of the Manson family began their ambush and attack on Sharon Tate and her guests. The 4 members were Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, Patricia Kremwinkle, and Charles Tex Watson. When they first arrived close to the property, Tex Watson climbed a telephone pole and cut the line to prevent any telephone access to the house. The group then approached the main fence but decided not to climb it in case there was an alarm. They climbed an embankment which led to the grounds of the property. They then saw headlights approaching, which raised alarm. Tex Watson instructed the women to hide in the bushes while he made his way towards the car. In the car was an 18-year-old by the name of Stephen Parent. Stephen was there to visit his friend who was the property's caretaker. Tex approached him, slashed his hand, then shot him 4 times in the chest from point-blank range, killing him instantly. Tex then cut a hole in a window screen of the house and made his way in. He let Susan and Patricia in through the front door, while Linda stayed on lookout. While the trio were in the living room, they woke Wojtek, who was sleeping on a couch. Wojtek asked Tex who he was and why he was there, which Tex replied with, "I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business."
I remember when we first went in, one of the people said, "Who are you?" And Tex said, "I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business." And I remember that in my conscience, it's so alive in me, even just recalling it. I remember that I had gone so far and there was no turning back. That even if I had wanted to run, even if I had wanted to leave, I couldn't. It was like I was caught in something that I had no control over. I had absolutely no say-so as to what was happening there. I was just like a tool in the hands of the devil, is the only way I can put it.
Tex then instructed the 2 girls to find the remaining residents and force them into the living room. Tex wrapped a rope around Sharon and Jay's necks, tied them together, then threw the rope over a ceiling beam. Jay started to shout at Tex due to the way he was treating Sharon. Tex shot Jay and stabbed him 7 times. As Wojtek's hands had only been bound with a towel, he managed to escape, but Susan quickly jumped on him and a struggle started. Susan stabbed him in the leg, but he managed to overcome her fight and made his way towards the door. Tex caught up with him and pistol whipped him multiple times. He beat him so badly that the gun started to fall apart. Tex then stabbed Wojtek repeatedly and shot him twice. In response to the horrifying racket emanating from the house, the lookout Linda approached the house and lied to the family members, telling them that they had been made and claimed people were heading towards the house. Abigail Folger managed to escape from Patricia Krenwinkel and fled towards the pool area. Patricia caught up with Abigail, stabbed her, then tackled her. Tex made his way over, and him along with Patricia stabbed Abigail 28 times. An object moving across the lawn caught Tex's eye. It was a severely hurt Wojtek. Tex ran over and stabbed him to death, stabbing him a total of 51 times. Sharon Tate was the only person left living. The Manson family made their way into the living room to finish off Tate. Tate pleaded with the family, begging them to keep her alive long enough to have her baby. She offered herself as a hostage in order to save her baby's life. The family were having none of this. Either Susan or Tex, possibly both, murdered Tate. She was stabbed 16 times. Susan claimed Tate cried out, "Mother, mother," as she was dying. Before the family had left to commit the crime, they were instructed by Charles Manson to leave a sign. Manson told them to make it something witchy. In response, Susan grabbed a towel, soaked it in Sharon Tate's blood, and wrote the word pig on the front door of the house. The family then left the house and ditched their bloody attire and weapons. Tate's housekeeper came across the scene the following morning. Polanski was informed of the murder and returned to Los Angeles, where him and the police struggled to come up with a motive for the attack. The following night on August 9th, Manson along with the 4 members from the previous night and 2 extra members Leslie Van Houten and Steve Grogan made their way to 3301 Waverly Drive, located in the Los Feliz section of Los Angeles. The property was home to Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary. Lino was a supermarket executive, Rosemary was a dress shop owner. Manson entered the home first, then returned to the family and told them he had tied up the residents. Once the family entered the house, they caused a scene just as gruesome as the previous night. Rosemary was stabbed 41 times by Patricia Krenwinkel and Leslie Van Houten. Lino was stabbed 12 times by Tex Watson. Watson carved the word war into Lino's abdomen. Tex went to take a shower, and during this time, Patricia stabbed Lino's dead body 14 times with a carving fork. She left the fork protruding out of Lino's stomach. Patricia then used the couple's blood to write the words "Rise," "Death to Pigs," and "Helter Skelter" on the walls of the house. Manson claimed Lino was murdered in order to obtain a black phone book which held numbers to the music industry.
Lino LaBianca was killed for a black phone book with all the numbers in it. The phone numbers that controlled the music market. Sharon Tate and those people were killed because Terry Melcher broke a contract and sent 3 Orientals with hatchets over to kill somebody else.
One motive that stands out the most, and is most likely the motive behind the murder, is the Terry Melcher motive. Terry Melcher was an American musician and record producer. He was also son to Doris Day. Charles Manson's main goal was to get a record deal, so he was over the moon once he was introduced to Terry. Dennis Wilson, a member of the Beach Boys and Manson's former friend, introduced the two to each other in 1969 at a party Dennis was hosting. Terry agreed to listen to Manson play. Manson got his hopes up and believed this was his big break. However, he was disappointed as Terry never came through. Tex Watson claimed Manson said to him, "Terry made some big promises but never came through." Manson also claimed that Terry only cared about money. Manson grew very disappointed at Terry's rejection as he saw it as his moment to make it in the music industry. Terry Melcher was the previous resident of 10050 Celio Drive before Tate and Polanski lived there. Just before the family left for the Tate murders, Tex Watson claimed Charlie said to him, "I want you to go to the house where Melcher used to live. I want you to take a couple of girls and totally destroy everyone in that house, as gruesome as you can." So the murders could have possibly been a message to Melcher, as Melcher was believed to be on the family's hit list. Also, Charlie knew that Terry no longer lived there. Charlie visited the property on March 23rd, 1969. He was greeted by a photographer by the name of Shiroki Hatamai. Hatamai asked Charlie what he wanted, in which he replied by asking if Terry Melcher lived there. Charlie was told that Melcher no longer lived there, but still returned to the property later on that day. This time, he was greeted by the property owner, Rudy Altabelli. Rudy told Charlie that Terry had moved to Malibu, so clearly, Charlie now knew that Terry no longer lived at the address. So why did Manson send the family to the address? This leads us to the next motive. This motive suggests that the helter-skelter plan was simply a ruse in order to keep the female family members under Manson and Tex Watson's control while they built a drug empire. The main aspect that blew this case wide open was simple: the funding. Charles Manson was a musician, but his craft didn't make him much profit as he didn't have a record deal. Manson family member Paul Watkins claimed Charlie carried around $3,000 to $5,000 cash in hand and had stash houses holding around $30,000 to $40,000. In today's standards, that will be close to $250,000. So where was this money coming from? The Manson family stayed in the Spahn movie ranch located in Los Angeles County. The ranch was once used to shoot Western movies, but by the 1960s, the ranch became desolate and its main source of income was from horse riding. The owner, George Spahn, allowed the family to stay at the ranch rent-free in exchange for labor. Around 12 to 24 family members stayed at the ranch. This included men, women, and children. With a family comes cost, as they must be provided with healthcare, clothes, food, and many other necessities. The family also owned several vehicles, including a VW minivan, a Fiat, a 1950s Ford, a cake truck, a customized school bus, and several dune buggies. Not only do vehicles require maintenance, they also need gas. The family also spent money on several different drugs during their binges. So where did they acquire the money to fund their lifestyle? During a prison interview, when asked about his work status before he was locked up, Manson mentioned that he made money via the underworld.
And 10 or 15 girls, what the hell I want to go off and go to work for? Work for what? Money? I got all the money in the world. I'm the king, man. I run the underworld, guy. I decide who does what and where they do it at. What am I going to run around and act like I'm some teeny bopper somewhere for somebody else's money? I make the money, man. I roll the nickels. The game is mine.
As we saw from Gary Hinman's death, the Manson family were involved in drug trafficking. Tex Watson supplied the family with money by different business ventures. Before the murders, he owned a wig shop called Love Locks and also sold drugs. A strange coincidence about the wig shop is that two of his victims were also in the wig business. Jay Sebring from the Tate murders was a hairdresser to the stars, and Rosemary LaBianca also dealt with wigs in her dress shop. So during this time, they may have been competitors or could have possibly done business with each other. Love Locks closed after 6 months of being in business, and after this, Tex sold drugs as his main source of income. On page 141 of David McGovern's book titled Programmed to Kill, it states that Frykowski and Abigail Folger were allegedly involved in the trafficking of hallucinogens. The book states that Frykowski had allegedly secured a deal before his murder, which would have made him a major distributor of a drug known as MDA. MDA is a psychedelic drug also known as the love drug. It is similar to MDMA, also known as ecstasy. A book titled Helter Skelter revealed the autopsy results of the Tate murders. It showed that Frykowski and Abigail both had MDA in their system on the night of the murders. Small amounts of MDA was also found on the property. While on trial for the murder, Susan Atkins claimed on the night Linda Kasabian instructed Susan to get a knife and go with her and Tex to Beverly Hills as somebody owed them $1,000 for a new drug called MDA. Susan also stated that she had no idea as to who the residents of the house were. She claimed neither did Tex or Charlie. However, both Tex and Charlie visited Tate's home before the murders, so clearly they knew who lived there. On page 24 of a book titled The Manson File, Myth and Reality of an Outlaw, written by Nicholas Schreck, it states how a New Jersey underworld figure, Joe Rustow, delivered a large amount of mescaline and cocaine to Frykowski and Sebring. On pages 540 and 541, the book links Jay Sebring to a New Jersey Mafia member by the name of Abner Zwillman. Zwillman was known in the media as the New Jersey Al Capone. The book states that Jay Sebring rented a New Jersey property located on Eastern Drive, which was owned by the infamous Genovese crime family. Zwillman was connected to the Genovese family and was uncle to Joe Rustow. On the same pages of the book, it claims Jay was buying large quantities of drugs from Joel. Tex Watson may have also been connected to Joe Rustow. In chapter 10 of Tex Watson's book Will You Die For Me, Tex explains that his connect for the drug trade was a mafia guy who had a vending machine business as a front. A woman by the name of Gina Judd investigated this for her blog. She found that an associate of Joe Rustow by the name of Eugene Gino Massaro was a drug dealer out of Boston who used a vending machine business as a cover. Gina moved to California in 1967, the same time Tex Watson did. Tex Watson originally came from Texas, where he worked in his parents' store. Once they left for California in 1967, he took with him $4,000 and a car. In today's standards, that's about $25,000. This could have been Tex's life savings. However, some people have come to believe that Tex was selling drugs in Texas and was offered a larger role in the business in California. Also in the blog, Gina Judd claimed that Joel Rostow had allegedly told Carlene McGaffrey, Jay Brink's secretary, that he allegedly went to Tate's home on August 8th in order to drop off a large quantity of drugs. However, he didn't have the specific amount needed, so left the house. Knowing that Joel was an active criminal, Carlene allegedly informed the police, who according to the blog, questioned Joel about the murders which occurred only a day later. Joel allegedly told the police that he didn't know Jay but did know Frykowski. As Gina didn't list her sources for this information, it cannot be proven. Charles Manson also had connections to the Genovese crime family. In the Manson File book on page 41, it describes how Charles Manson became friends with a mafia member by the name of Alvin Karpis while serving time in Washington state. Before Manson was transferred to McNeil Island, Alvin wrote a letter to Genovese family associate Frankie Carbo. The letter asked Carbo to keep an eye out on Manson and to look out for him. Manson confirmed his relationship with Carbo, as in a 1988 interview with Geraldo Rivera, he said, "I knew Frankie Carbo. Frankie Carbo knew Lino LaBianca." On page 113 of a book titled The Shadow over Santa Susana, which is a book about Charles Manson, it states that Lino was a chronic gambler with a $500 a day habit. The book also stated that Lino was $30,000 in debt, in which he allegedly owed to Frankie Carbo. Lino was a board of director of the Hollywood Bank. After his murder, police investigated the bank. They believe the mafia may have been laundering money through the bank, leading to many of the directors being arrested for fraud and other crimes. In David McGowan's book Programmed to Kill on page 141, it claimed that Rosemary LaBianca was a known trafficker of methamphetamine. Although there is no proof, a blogger who goes by the name of XDell came across a rumor that she allegedly used her shop in order to launder money and move drugs. This rumor also claimed that she would allegedly move drugs to other wig shop owners. So if the rumor was true, she could have been in business with Tex, as he owned Love Locks, or Tex could have caught wind of Rosemary's supply chain and decided to rob her. Tex knew Rosemary's daughter, Suzanne Struthers. They knew each other through Suzanne's boyfriend, Joseph Dorgan, who was a member of the motorcycle gang the Straight Satans. Joseph was a known drug dealer who also knew Charlie, as the Straight Satans would visit him at the ranch. Some people believe that Susan allegedly gave Tex insider knowledge of the safe located in the house. There are many outcomes to this conspiracy theory. People believe Tex Watson was the main reason behind the murders. He and Charlie, with their mob connections, were trying to start a large drug operation. As they had insider knowledge of where drugs were being moved to and from, they were either at the Tate residence to rob them for $40,000, which was there in order to pay Joe Rostow, or they could have been there to make a deal. As in Nicholas Schreck's book, he claims that the Manson family were there in order to make a drug deal worth 20 grand, but it went wrong. As for the LaBianca murder, this was committed due to insider knowledge of a safe within the residence, which held a large amount of cash, and a black book which had key numbers to the music industry, in which Charlie needed. The theory suggests that the Tate and LaBianca murders were not a random act of violence, nor a crime of the helter-skelter ideology. The theory suggests that the victims and the Manson family were deeply involved in drug trafficking, tied in with the mafia. As most of the conspiracy relies on word-of-mouth accounts, there is no concrete evidence, other than a small amount of drugs found at the scene, that Jay Sebring and Frykowski were involved in drug trafficking. Some believe the police covered up the crime in order to protect high-profile stars. If the theory is true, why didn't Tex or Manson mention the mafia involvement? People believe they didn't out of respect or fear. Others believe the media only portrayed the Manson insane hippie cult side to the public in order to bring an end to the hippie movement. After the police investigation, rumors started to spread that claimed photographs and videotapes were found within Tate's home, which involved high-level Hollywood stars involved in strange ritualistic acts. Police admitted that they found photographs which looked similar to a satanic sacrifice. They concluded that they were photographs from Tate's film Eye of the Devil. Rumors began to circulate that claimed there was a videotape found at the house which contained footage of a four-way orgy allegedly involving actors Yul Brynner and Peter Sellers. There is no evidence of this tape existing, but Charles Manson spoke about the tape during an interview.
Did they tell you about all the film that they got with the dogs and the chauffeurs that came out of the black and white when Yul Brynner and Peter Sellers paid $30,000 to get the videotapes back that they had done with the pornography, where they was gobbling on each other's knobs in the closet with Sharon, beautiful Sharon.
American actor Dennis Hopper, who was friends to Tate and Polanski, made a statement to the LA Free Press. He said they had fallen into sadism, masochism, and bestiality and recorded it all on videotape too. The LA police told me this. I know that 3 days before they were killed, 25 people were invited to that house for a mass whipping of a dealer from Sunset Strip who had given them bad dope. In a book titled One Hand Jerking, Reports of an Investigative Satirist, American author Paul Krasner claimed a private detective by the name of Hal Lipset told him that members of the LA police force had 7 hours of footage of many celebrity sex parties allegedly held at the home. Hal Lipset claimed that the footage was up for sale at the price of $250,000. Jay Sebring was allegedly involved in strange Hollywood parties. In Sammy Davis Jr. book Why Me, Sammy recounted a strange party he went to. In 1968, Sammy went to a party in which he described the theme as being Dungeons, Dragons, and debauchery. The party was hosted by the Church of Satan. At the party, Sammy described the bizarre scene. All attendees were wearing robes and masks. They surrounded a naked woman who was chained up on a red velvet altar. Sammy claimed the woman was willing and happy. In Sammy's book, he said, "One of the leaders of the group tilted his hood back to show me his face. It was a good friend of mine, Jay Sebring, my barber. I'd always known Jay was a little weird. He had a dungeon in his house and he'd say, 'You've got to come over, man. See what I've got downstairs. I've got some real antique pieces.'" In January 2016, a Daily Mail article written by Caroline Howe, which referenced a book titled Sharon Tate, A Life, claimed Roman Polanski forced Sharon Tate into threesomes and also filmed orgies at their house. The article claimed Roman would then go on to show the films at parties. The films were said to be based around S&M and had many recognizable faces of Hollywood in them. The article also claimed that Roman refused to have sex with Sharon once she became pregnant and told her to have an abortion. Videotapes like these are believed to be known as fame porn. It's believed to be recordings of celebrities taking part in humiliating acts of sex, which is then used to blackmail them. According to conspiracy theorist John Todd, Roman Polanski was part of a satanic group in which Sharon Tate didn't approve of, and therefore Sharon was murdered because of it.
Tate was breaking away. Her husband knew about it. Her husband went over to establish an alibi in Europe, but that's what the Tate killings were about. The others just happened to be there. She wanted out, and you don't get out. She was having a baby, and she didn't want the baby raised up in it, and she wanted out.
John Todd claimed Charles Manson was also involved in Satanism. John claimed Manson was part of the religious group known as the Process Church of Final Judgment. The church came about as an off-branch of Scientology. The Process Church have been demonized for being Satanists and devil worshippers as they worship both God and the devil. In a book titled The Ultimate Evil, the author Maury Terry went into detail about Manson's involvement in the Process Church. Terry accused the church of Hitler worship, animal sacrifice, drug trafficking, child pornography, and murder. As Manson dabbled in Satanism and different cults, he knew the role Satanism played in Hollywood. In David McGowan's book There's Something About Henry, he claimed the Manson family murders were a contract hit carried out for specific purposes under the instruction of interlocking satanic cults within Hollywood. John Todd claimed $50,000 was sent from Toronto to New Orleans in order to pay Manson to take out Tate. However, Manson only received $2,000 of it.
$1,000 came down from Toronto to New Orleans, and poor Manson only got $2,000 of it by the time it went through all the sticky fingers.
There was also rumors that Polanski allegedly filmed several snuff films of children at a secret filming location located in Laurel Canyon known as the Lookout Mountain Lab. The Lookout Mountain Lab is a secret Hollywood film studio where many classified films have been produced. There is no proof to back the snuff film claim, and it is simply a rumor. In March of 1977, Roman was arrested and charged with 5 offenses against a 13-year-old girl. These charges included rape by the use of drugs, perversion, sodomy, lewd acts upon a child under the age of 14, and furnishing a controlled substance to a minor. Initially, Roman pled not guilty, but in exchange for a plea bargain, he accepted the lesser charge of engaging in unlawful sexual intercourse. Hours before his sentence, Roman fled to France, and since then, he has spent his time in France, fearing other countries may extradite him to the US. So could have Polanski been involved with a satanic group? His circle of friends seemed to be involved in some levels of Satanism. Polanski was also friends with the founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey. LaVey helped create the satanic sex scene in Rosemary's Baby. There is no proof besides hearsay that Polanski is a Satanist. While filming for The Eye of the Devil, Sharon Tate was initiated as a witch by a man called Alex Saunders. He dubbed himself as the King of the Witches. The producers hired him to give the film more of an authentic feel. Could this be while Charles Manson told the family to leave something witchy as a sign at the crime scene? To sum up this conspiracy theory, it suggests that bizarre occultist parties took place within Hollywood which were hosted by Satanists. The theory suggests that Sharon Tate, Polanski and their circle of friends were allegedly involved in the parties. The theory suggests that Sharon Tate wanted out and didn't want her baby to be raised in a satanic setting, and in response, she was murdered. In the end, Charles Manson and his family received life in prison. In violation of the 6th Amendment, Charles Manson was not allowed to defend himself during his trial. The jury believed he may use hypnosis in his favour. It's now your time to vote. Use the interactive poll on screen, or simply comment A for the Helter Skelter motive, B for the Terry Melcher motive, C for the drug trafficking motive, or D for the satanic cult motive. The results will be revealed in the next episode, in which we will tackle another mysterious and dark crime. Thank you so much for watching. We haven't named this series yet, but we're going to upload once every week, and we're going to tackle mysterious and dark crimes, and you get to decide at the end which motive you believe was the one behind the crime. So it's in your choice. Make your mind up. Once again, thank you so much for watching. See you next week. Goodbye.